What's up, everyone? This is Mr. Avila coming to you from Southern California, here with our next video on a series of pre-algebra videos, video number 8. Today we're going to be covering multiplying and dividing integers. Now, if you're watching this video and you're actually not in my class, welcome! Today you are one of my students. As always, make sure to have a paper and a pencil as you are expected to be writing this stuff down. These lessons are interactive. You just don't sit and watch, but you sit and you work through everything. Pause the video when I ask you to, just like we're about to do in this warm-up. Please write down this warm-up. This is about the lessons from before. Here we have some algebraic expressions that I'm asking you to evaluate. Please copy down these questions, try them out, pause the video, and when you're ready, we'll move on to see if you have them correct. And moving on in 3, 2, 1. I hope you paused. And here are our answers. Number 1, 63. Number 2, 1. Number 3, 45. Number 4, 7. Number 5, 12. And number 6, 32. Hope you guys were able to get those right. If not, ask for some help. Get somebody around it to help you out. Watch the videos with you or reach out to me and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. What we've been talking about these last few lessons, the difference between these types of expressions. Hopefully now you realize on the left here, we have algebraic expressions because they have variables, and on the right we have numeric expressions because those expressions only have numbers. In the previous lesson, we covered a little bit of vocabulary, and you learned that these vocabulary words on the left line up with the answers over here on the right. So you should now know, if I ask you, what is a variable? What is an algebraic equation? What is a numeric expression? What is an algebraic expression? And what is a numeric equation? You should be able to distinguish between all of those words. Also in the previous lesson, we covered a very important lesson actually on the rules for adding and subtracting integers. Now these aren't necessarily the most perfect rules in the world, but it's the best thing I've been able to put together after teaching this for so long. If the signs are the same, add the numbers and keep the sign. If the signs are different, subtract the numbers and use the sign of the larger number. Adding a negative is equivalent to subtraction. So if I say 5 plus negative 3, that's the same as saying that's equivalent to saying 5 minus 3. And finally, subtracting a negative is equivalent to addition. So if I say 5 minus negative 3, that is equivalent to saying 5 plus 3. So those give you the same answer. Okay, we're going to practice a little bit. When I ask you to read with me, you should try to read this with me. So I'm going to say 30 plus negative 25, and you should be repeating it after me. So that expression says 30 plus negative 25. You read it. Now that you've done so, we notice that we're adding a negative. As I mentioned earlier, adding a negative is equivalent to subtraction. So 30 plus negative 25 is equivalent to 30 minus 25, and 30 minus 25 is 5. Negative 8 plus negative 3, adding a negative, same rule. Adding a negative is the same as subtraction. So negative 8, we result in negative 8 minus 3 as an equivalent statement to negative 8 plus negative 3. Now negative 8 minus 3, we have all negatives. 8 negatives, if you noticed in the previous lesson. 3 negatives, we add them all up together. Signs are the same, we add them all up and keep the sign. We get negative 11. You try. Class, what is 10 plus negative 8? I'll show you in 3, 2, and 1. That's equivalent to 10 minus 8, which is 2. Good job. How about 2 plus negative 5? We're adding a negative. Try it yourself. And moving on in 3, 2, 1. This is equivalent to 2 minus 5. And 2 minus 5 is negative 3. We have 2 positives and 5 negatives. Cancel out the negative ones and plus ones from the previous lesson. And we end up, we're left over with 3 negatives. If you're not sure about that last step, please watch the previous video. Now here we're subtracting a negative. Read it with me. 30 minus negative 25. 30 minus negative 25. And I mentioned in the previous videos and in the rules where we just mentioned that subtracting a negative is equivalent to addition. So we write 30 plus 25. 30 plus 25 is 55. Read this one. This says negative 9 minus negative 4. We're subtracting a negative. So that's going to be equivalent to addition. Negative 9 plus 4 Here, as I showed in the previous video, 9 negatives, 4 positives. The 4 positives eliminate, and we're left over with 5 negatives. So we end up here with -5. Again, we're also applying the rule when we have different signs, we subtract and we take the sign of the bigger number. Okay, you try. What's 9 minus -3? Moving on. In 3, 2, 1. Try it. I hope you have an answer. That's the same equivalent to 9 plus 3, which is 12. Congratulations if you got 12. If not, seek for some help. We're all here to help you. -4 minus -6. Subtracting a negative. Oh, wait, no. You try. You try first. 3, 2, 1. Moving on. -4 plus 6, because subtracting a negative is equivalent to addition, and -4 plus 6 is 2. Good for you if you got that right. If not, ask for some help. Wow, you're starting to understand these integers. This is not easy. So if you're having a little trouble, that's okay. Rewatch the videos, ask for help, because this is not necessarily easy. And it's going to get a little confusing, because now we're going to throw in multiplication and division. And now, multiplication and division, the rules are actually not that difficult. But when you combine all 4 of them together, people's brains explode because they are not understanding what they're reading correctly. If you read correctly, you'll be able to apply the rules correctly. The rules for multiplying and dividing integers are here. A positive times a positive is a positive. Negative times a negative is a positive. Positive times a negative is a negative. And negative times a positive is a negative. Okay? Same signs, positive. Different signs, negative. The size of the numbers do not matter. And those are the same rules for division. If we look on the right, they're the exact same thing. So the rules are actually pretty easy. But again, it gets complicated when you combine, when you start doing problems that have all 4 operations in them: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So let's first just practice with some straight multiplication. Let's just take a look here. -3 times 5. So looking back at our rules, which you probably should have written down. Negative times a positive, -3 times 5. That's a negative times a positive. And we notice back here in the rules that we have a negative. So the answer is going to be a negative answer automatically. You don't need to worry about which number is bigger or smaller, anything. Negative times a positive is a negative always. And we multiply 3 times 5, that's 15. So the answer is -15. Again, the rules for multiplication and division are actually not as difficult as addition and subtraction. And we use those rules. 10 times -10. So positive times a negative, according to the rules, is a negative. And 10 times 10 is 100. So we get -100. Again, here we found that because a positive times a negative is a negative always. Here we read this as -4 times -2, and I included this because I wanted you to see all the different ways we could write multiplication. -4 times -2. In between these two parentheses, it is understood that there is a multiplication. The parentheses themselves do not mean multiplication. It's just mathematicians got lazy, and they said, well, if we write 2 parentheses together in the middle, that means multiplication. But the parentheses do not mean multiplication by themselves. There's many places where parentheses are used, and they do not mean multiplication. -4 times -2. Well, if we look at the rules, which you wrote down, a negative times a negative gives you a positive. Always 4 times 2 is 8, so we get +8. And we applied the rule that a negative times a negative is a positive. You try. What's -11 times 8? In 3, 2, and 1. And our answer is -88. Good for you. Hopefully you applied the rule. A negative times a positive is a negative. +5 times -9. You try it. In 3, 2, 1. And our answer is -45. And I hope you applied the rule. A positive times a negative is equal to a negative. Now for division, rules are very similar. We have a negative divided by a negative, same signs, we end up with a positive, and 3 goes into 18 6 times, so we end up here with +6. Pretty easy. Division, multiplication, not so bad. And here we applied the rule negative divided by a negative is equal to a positive. How about a negative divided by a positive? Well, I look at the rules, and I know that negative divided by a positive is a negative. So we end up here with -8 because 7 goes into 56 8 times. Negative divided by a positive is a negative. That rule right here. Same signs, positive, different signs, negative. That's it for division, not too bad. 12 divided by -3, you try. Answers coming up in 3, 2, and 1. Hopefully you got -4. Okay, now, all the rules together, if you haven't written them down, you should write them. You should write all the rules. And you should draw that picture of me with a crown because I'm the ruler and we hear all the rules. Here are the rules for adding and subtracting integers. You should have those down already. If not, this is the time to write them down. And here are the rules for multiplying and dividing integers. If you haven't written these down, you should do that as well. Because as you go through these problems, you need to think about what's happening. You have to read the problem and stop and think. Are you adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? And then you know which rules to use. After a while, you're not going to need to look at the rules, but for now, you need to look at the rules to understand this. So please, 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 stop and think about which rules you are using. I don't want you to hear -6 plus 3 and then just try to give an answer without thinking. Stop. What rule am I adding or subtracting, multiplying or dividing? What rules go with this? And then give me an answer. So please stop and think before you actually give an answer. Don't worry if you need to think a few seconds before responding. There's nothing about math that makes you better or worse at math because you could answer it faster. Okay, just make sure you stop, think, process the way you need to process, and give the answer based off of the rules. So here's some practice problems. You're going to evaluate 20 numeric expressions here. But before we do, I want you to be careful with the following situations because they look very similar and this is where people get confused. Over here we have -8 minus -3. On the right, we have -8 times -3. They almost look the same. You see a lot of parentheses, so your brain thinks that there's multiplication in both of them, but there is not multiplication over here on the left side. -8 minus -3. If you notice the way I read that, I never read a multiplication because there is none. But over here, -8 times -3, yes, there is a multiplication there. So minus a negative, we're going to convert that to a plus. This first parenthesis actually doesn't affect the value of that -8, so we can make that go away. -8 plus 3, we have 8 negatives and 3 positives. That gives us -5. Signs are different. Subtract, keep the sign of the larger one. Again, you're going to those rules that I showed you. If need be, you might have to go to the previous video to see how I saw did the negatives with the 8 negatives with 3 positives. Finally, on this side, -8 times -3, we think we have a multiplication. We go back to the multiplication rules, and a negative times a negative gives us a positive. So here we get 24. Okay, here are the 10 problems that I'm asking you to do. Again, take your time, look at each one, read each one carefully. For example, the first one is read 5 minus -6, and read all of them carefully before you actually answer. Figure out what rule it is and then answer, because if you're trying to answer just on the fly, making up rules in your head, then the rules get all confused and then you end up making mistakes. So good luck, try those out, pause the video, and when you are ready, we're going to move on to see if you have the answers right. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Oh, sorry, I forgot there's 20 of them. So those are the first 10. You should have written those down. And here are 10 more. Pause the video, write these down. You thought you were done with 10. Well, there's actually 20, even though I said it earlier. Now, I'm going to ask you to pause the video, and we're moving on in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, good luck. Here are the answers. Check your work, please. I have all answers here for numbers 1 through 20. I'm not going to read them all out loud, but hopefully you did a good job. And if not, please ask for help. Reach out. We're all here to support you. Great work. If you're still confused, if you did these answers and you got a lot of them incorrect, that's okay. That's okay. This is not easy. People have a lot of trouble getting these rules in their head. Keep practicing and ask for help. Okay? Ask for help. Reach out to me or try to make somebody at your house watch these videos with you to see if they can help you out as well. With that ends today's lesson. I want to say thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys. And if you're in a math class and you need a video of some other information in math, let me know. And when I have a chance, I'll put together a video to help you out. Again, that wraps up the lesson for today. Today we learned about how to add and subtract, multiply, and divide integers. And with that, I'll see you at the next lesson. Bye.